It's been 84 years, or at least it felt like it was that long, because after 6 long months, the One Piece anime is finally back. The Fishman Island remake acted as a placeholder during that time as well, and I did watch that weekly as well. And I did enjoy it because I think Fishman Island is a very underrated arc, but even then, if we're being honest, it was more of a glorified countdown until the real show could make its grand return. And grand it was, with 2 episodes back to back across the weekend, new opening, new ending, new eye catchers back for the Egghead arc anime part 2. So to kind of commemorate the fact that it's back, I just want to go over both of the new episodes, 1123 and 1124. Not a review, not a reaction. I'm not going to compare it shot for shot, panel by panel with the manga, aside from what's already been brought to my attention. It's not going to be a play-by-play for the episodes. I just want to talk about them for a bit, bask in the greatness that is the One Piece anime's revival. That makes me sound so spoiled because some anime go years between their seasonal releases and some don't get an anime at all, yet here I am crying about a mere 6-month break. I just love this story a lot, and these episodes were so good, although that's not to say there wasn't stuff that made a lot of people upset. So let's get that unsavory stuff out of the way first. Everything regarding the changes made around Sanji. There's 2 major ones, technically 3, although I don't count the third one as a problem. The first one is his exclusion from the group shot of everyone standing over York as she's calling the elders to tell them to keep their promise and rescue her because Emperor Straw Hat Luffy is holding her hostage. Sanji is smack bang in the center of this double page spread in the manga. He's not up front, nor does he take up too much space, but he's there clear as day holding some food. Now as for the anime, he's nowhere to be seen, and the thing is that he isn't replaced with anything. The other characters in the shot aren't shuffled around to compensate for the spot he was supposed to be in. There's just a very obvious blank spot on the screen where he was obviously standing, and it stands out like a sore thumb. So what was the point of removing him? Did they accidentally leave out or delete his layer when they were editing the episode together? It's not like they didn't know he was supposed to be there, and like I said, it's obvious there's an empty spot where he should have been. So there's then the conversation that shifts to how this was allowed to happen in the first place, if it was a mistake, or who made the decision for this to happen, if it was on purpose. And speaking of it maybe being purposeful, that leads to the second change, which is to do with Sanji's character, where he is offering food to Bonnie after Robin ends the call between Luffy and the elders. In the manga you can see him offering a drink to Bonnie while she's eating, and that's it. But in the anime, heart eyes are added, which is a really weird change given what we know about Bonnie. And in this situation, revisiting the previous issue where he's missing from the group shot, in the manga he did have heart eyes while holding a plate of food, but he's clearly facing towards and running in the direction of Nami. And very soon after we see him offering Bonnie the drink, he has heart eyes again, but this time he is serving Stussy, giving her a cup of tea. So it is obviously a conscious decision by Oda to not show Sanji with heart eyes when with Bonnie, because of the truth of her character, even if there was no way for Sanji to actually know that. And that choice of Sanji not having heart eyes with Bonnie fits with the dynamic they had throughout the whole arc, where Sanji acted like a protective brother towards her. That's it. So it's odd that the anime staff or whoever made the decision decided to make this change, especially with all that we know about her character. That change is much more egregious to me than the first one because of the kind of light it paints Sanji in. And this whole thing has kind of brought up the topic of how much or how often Oda himself gets involved with the anime, and it's a known fact that he does, with adding some stuff to give more context or some consultation on major episodes. He isn't going to get involved with stuff like this. He's not going to be micromanaging the adaptation of one double page spread, nor will he be micromanaging the implementation of heart eyes. He's already barely got any time in his day to sleep. I don't think he's gonna waste it on things like that. And I can only assume that whatever tweaks the anime does make are done with purely good intentions, but this just doesn't really make much sense what they've done here with Sanji. That being said, it's no excuse to go around harassing the staff on Twitter when they were just doing their jobs, or worse, harassing anime staff who didn't even work on the episode. There's the idea that Toei has something against Sanji. I don't know. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Honestly, the only way to really defend it is by making heavy assumptions, because the plate of food he's holding in the anime with Bonnie is the same one he is holding in the double page spread in the manga, and the drink he's giving her in the manga is nowhere to be seen, so you'd have to assume that they, I guess, misinterpreted the panels. But it is a hard assumption to make because I'm a random guy halfway across the world who has no clue about the adaptation of manga to anime, but I've noticed this. Surely professional professional staff should also notice it. But that's it, that's the elephant in the room now addressed. As for the actual episodes, I couldn't ask for a better start to this return, giving the extra title card in front of the ominous Egghead Island. I said this before the 6-month break was first announced, or before it began. When it was first announced, I said this, for the release of episode 1122. That was pretty much the perfect part of the arc to take a break after spending an extended period of time away from the island and away from the crew, instead seeing Shanks, Sabo, Garp, and ending on the newspaper cliffhanger. It was the optimal point to pause proceedings, and even more so when the first chapter to be adapted following the break began with cuts to places all across the world. So it acted as this grand reintroduction to the story and to the world this story takes place in that we had been missing for so long, and the sunrise in this scene, which wasn't in the manga, had a similar effect, like finally the sun rises on the One Piece anime again. And it's an addition that worked really well in the context of the story as well, because the last episode, the last chapter, ended with Garp's capture and spoke about the newspaper headlines the following day, and this is the sun rising on the following day. So all around it was such a well put together opening for the return. A nice little recap as well, since it has been so long, and also most fans aren't like us who go over every minute detail of anything One Piece related. These episodes were really well paced as well. I noticed it specifically when the global earthquake hit and we saw the brief flashes of various locations like Wano, Tequila Wolf, and so on. If the 6-month break didn't happen, that shaking probably would have lasted for another 5 minutes. We see Momo as the Shogun looking majestic, Laboon going crazy, Hina makes an appearance. It's the build up to the reappearance of our main cast, supplemented by characters who aren't seen much outside of their respective arcs. And back to Egghead, notice how the colour of the actual egg has been changed to more accurately represent its canon coloration, and it looks really good. That comes alongside the reveal of the 9 Vice Admirals, who are also here for the occasion, even though the Vice Admirals haven't been intimidating individually since Momonga, who knows how long ago, and Kizaru is hard carrying the squad here. I say individually because it still goes to show the magnitude of the event, because even though as individuals they aren't all that anymore, we still understand the scale of this many of them showing up together. Narrator speaks on the amount of ships and men. All I have to say to that is look at the respect my captain, Emperor of the Sea Monkey D. Luffy, commands from the Navy, that this is how far they have to go because of his involvement here. We get new eye catchers as well. The art style is so cool. The Saturn tease, I know for a fact that there will be a few anime onlys thinking that is Kaido. To be honest, I couldn't tell you if that counts as a major spoiler or not, because obviously I already know what happens. Is it a major spoiler because it revolves around an extremely important part of the arc, or is it a minor one because it doesn't have any context so most people won't understand it anyway? I don't know, but either way it looks great. And the other one, the exclusion of York, is noted and very appreciated. When we think of Vegapunk, it's solely this group of 6, not including her. And cut back to Saturn now, who's eating sausages. I don't think I need to explicitly say why it's so fitting for that to be the food he's currently munching on. You're all smart enough or messed up enough to understand what I'm getting at here, like Ramsey and Theon. We see Doberman next to him, and I've always wondered how that works, like why him specifically in the room with him, but Saturn also tells him the plan and such, and it's obviously so he can report to Saturn and security of course, although that's kind of redundant with Kizaru on board. Between all the Vice Admirals basically, why Doberman? Is it because he's the strongest, oldest, has the most experience? He looks experienced with all of those scars and a missing pupil. I wonder if we've gotten his backstory yet or not. It sounds like something that could have been revealed in an SPS 10 years ago, and instead of him getting them in a great battle or something, it'd be something stupid like his pet dog, an actual Doberman, scratching him too hard. His wiki says he's a believer in absolute justice, so the same brand as Sakazuki, but he's hesitant. He's sweating when Saturn tells him to sink the ships carrying the Egghead researchers, as compared to Sakazuki, who sank the Ohara researchers on his own accord. I guess even within specific brands of justice there are levels as to how strongly one believes in it. And to be fair to Doberman, when Saturn mentions that human lives are equivalent to that of insects, he has a right to feel shaken up. His boss just told him, I couldn't care less if you died, your life means nothing. There's York's call with the elders now, which I don't think there's any need to go over the details about, but it was really well animated, very fluid. That's another thing I missed about the anime, how it just randomly goes from 0 to 100 in terms of animation. But the best thing about the call is Kizaru having the purpose of the black transponder snail on his wrist explained to him, because I would not not be surprised if he's already had it explained to him in the past, maybe more than one occasion, and he straight up just forgets each and every time. And these other low-ranking Marines have to explain it to him each and every time, because this is something an admiral should know about. And the big reveal, the return of Monkey D. Luffy and everyone else. We are back, we are so back. And we get the first line of Frankie's new voice actor, Kimura Subaru, and his voice is very different. From the offset, it was always going to be a tricky thing, because no matter how good or similar his voice sounded compared to the original, there was always bound to be some naysayers who will talk bad about it no matter what. And I agree that the original voice actor Kazuki Yao will always be Frankie in my eyes, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna completely shun this new voice actor Subaru, who's been tasked with filling these colossal boots. Yes, it will take a while to get fully used to him, but I'm not gonna listen to him speak and trash him for basically not being Kazuki Yao. That doesn't make any sense. And there's some new additional scenes that fill in the gaps of what happened before York was captured and everyone regrouped. This is the kind of stuff I expect Oda to get involved in, not those heart eyes. It was Robin who apprehended York in the basement alongside Chopper and Atlas, and they did say beforehand they were headed there to look for the Stella, and they eventually ran into the Seraphim, who left Luffy, Zoro, Kaku and Lucci to go look for weaker targets. And we know that Zoro initially chased after them and Kaku chased after him, and somehow Kaku got there first. That's not surprising in the slightest. The only reason Zoro was able to get there at all was probably because of his obsession with the Mihawk Seraphim S-Hawk. We see Luffy telling S-Snake to unpetrify Frankie and those guys, just like in the manga, and at some point Nami ran into that group because Lilith gave her a bubble gun which she used to capture the Seraphim. So we've got some of the gaps filled in now, and it lines up really nicely with Nami holding the bubble gun in the group shot. That other third Sanji thing is here as well. The fact that Nami saved him seems to have upset some people, but come on, that moment specifically is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And Vegapunk mentioning Elbaf is nearby, and it's crazy to think that we're here now. I remember how excited that moment made me, you know, thinking, is it real? Is it true? Is it finally gonna happen? Are we finally gonna go there? And with the Usopp and Luffy song and dance, just like after Little Garden, it feels good. And these two episodes end with Kizaru's arrival on the island, Luffy noticing his presence, and the beginning of his fight with Sentomaru. A fight that I am way more emotionally invested in than I would have expected, but that would be thanks to all we've learned about the two of them since this moment. There's a lot of underappreciated characters in the Egghead arc because of how much was going on with everyone on the island involved. Sentomaru is one of the MVPs in my opinion. He put in some serious work, and this fight, even before the Luffy Kizaru fight, this one has the potential to be really good in its own right. Not only animation wise, but as I said, there's story behind it, there's weight to it. I'm really looking forward to it next week, because it is next week. Every Sunday again, the One Piece anime is back, and after so long, hearing stuff like the Kuma flashback beginning in May, that sounds so ridiculously close, and I'm still not mentally prepared for it.